everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited today. Today, we are taking a break from covering Hallmark movies, and we are talking about a series on Netflix called Dash and Lily. Really fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and I have a very special guest with me today. YouTuber Austin Burke is here, and we're so excited to have you back on the podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to be back. This is not the show that I anticipated talking about multiple times, but I'll tell you what, Rachel, I'm excited to get into this discussion because it is much more of a treasure than trash. I'll tell you that much, but I'm excited. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So we had you last on, I think, for talking Babysitter's Club.
Yeah.
Which was so good and got renewed for season 2. Yay.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited. I can't listen. We have to cover that again because that is one of those shows. And it's one that you forget about too, because even when I was going through my favorite shows of the year so far, I kind of forgot to put Babysitter's Club.
I was a little outraged at your ranking video.
Yeah, I forgot. Somebody said Babysitter's Club. It may have been you in the comments, and I'm like, oh no. But it's firmly in one of the best Netflix shows of the year. It was great.
It's so good. I loved it. And I'll put a link down in the description to our Babysitter's Club season 1 podcast that we did. But yeah, so this Dash and Lily, and this is based on a series of books. Well, I think this is the first book that it's based on. And to be honest, young adult is usually not my jam because the whole sort of angry, disgruntled teen is usually not my favorite. It's just, I usually, after I watch these kind of things, I have to like call my mother and apologize because I just feel so bad because I know I was somewhat of a disgruntled teen, but I was excited about this, first of all, because it is Christmas themed. That's going to be interesting. But I don't know, it just looked interesting and charming. And had you heard of the books or anything like that going into this?
No, I actually found that out through research. I'm like, oh, wait, this is based on a book. And it's not the kind of show, again, what you're speaking upon is we get a lot of these, very generic coming of age stories on Netflix. And most of the time there are movies, but every now and then you get a show. You get one that avoids that, like Babysitter's Club, which was fantastic. But then you get some that come out and they're just, I've seen it all before. I've seen the same type of show. So when I started looking into this and I saw the cast and I saw what it was based off of, it did get me a bit excited. But again, I wasn't expecting the show that I ended up getting, but I am curious how it differs from the book. I was looking for people in my non-spoiler review who have read the book, so I'm going to keep an eye out for the comparisons there.
Yeah, if you've read the book and you watch the movie, put in the comments section maybe some of the differences. I'll definitely, in post-Christmas, I will read the book because I really enjoyed this series and I just don't have any time right now to read. But I'm really looking forward to reading it. But overall, what would you say about this first season? It sounds like you really enjoyed it.
I did. I loved the fact that they were kind of telling the story from a very different perspective. Well, 2 perspectives, obviously, but how they would kind of progress the story and then go back and tell it from Lily's perspective. And then we get into the next episode and introduce new characters. It just felt really, and I said this in my review, it felt fresh, right? And it also got me in the Christmas spirit. And I know you've been watching Christmas movies, so you're probably already there, Rachel, but I was still like, I'm not even into Thanksgiving yet. Like my brain just hasn't clicked. But as soon as I watched this, I thought to myself, this could be one that I go back to. Like you get these holiday movies and TV shows, and sometimes they just hit. And from the outside looking in, okay, coming of age, and our protagonist in Dash, well, he's kind of a snarky, humbug Christmas guy. And it's just not the kind of guy that I feel like I would relate towards, but I loved his character. I loved their relationship. I thought the chemistry, even though they were barely on screen together, was fantastic. And the show just really kind of blew me away. I really enjoyed my time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like Sleepless in Seattle in the sense that they're not together, but until the very end of in this case, the series, they're in that movie, they're not together till the very end, but they share so much like thought space together that it's fine with me. And you get that chemistry, and you know that if they can just figure everything out, then of course they're meant to be together. Yeah, so the basic concept of this series is that Lily, who's I think supposed to be 16, is that right?
I believe so. 16.
Yeah, 16. Yeah. So she's feeling very discouraged, and her parents are going to Fiji for Christmas. Her brother's in this relationship, so he's kind of not available for companionship and to do things. And so she's just feeling like, oh, everybody's forgotten about Christmas. And so she decides in her favorite bookstore to leave this journal for someone to find, and then it just so happens that this kid Dash finds the journal, and they start doing these dares with each other. And you do have to accept that basic concept in order to enjoy the show. That of course that just it would have been easy for a 65-year-old man to find the journal. Just so you have to just accept that, of course, the perfect sort of eligible, snarky, charming guy finds the journal and is up for doing this.
Yeah, step one is like, under the perfect circumstances, this show gets off the ground, right?
Right.
So if your brain doesn't click there, then you're not going to like the show, because from there are numerous events that, may just kind of fall into place, because that's how the story progresses. But normally I wouldn't really buy that kind of thing, right? It all comes down to the execution. I thought episode 1 really established who these characters were very well. Right. The fact that Austin Abrams' character was able to get up and, I believe, read the poem that she set for him and kind of embarrass himself in front of that group of people. And these constant back and forth dares, something that, first of all, I didn't know where the conflict would come in. And of course, we get that with the X situation, and then the kind of character that I didn't like, that guy situation. But the dares, the back and forth, kind of getting to know each other through that really, really worked right off the bat. So once I, accepted, all right, I'm glad it wasn't, like you said, a 65-year-old man. That's good. That's when I really started to enjoy this. And that's when my brain kind of locked in on what the story was.
You have to have like a little bit of whimsy in order to enjoy this show, but I certainly think all of the Hallmarkies will love it. It is like slightly more mature content than Hallmark. I would say this is a PG-13.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would too. Yeah. Well,
PG-13.
Someone said in my comments, they said it was, and I don't know if this is a different country kind of thing. They said it was a U for universal, like for a universal audience, meaning it's for anyone. I don't know if I would go below 13. And we talked about this. I think 13, 14 is the age, because there is a tiny bit of maybe inferring sexual content in there. So I don't know if it's for the entire family. Yeah, some language as well. But for the most part, comparing it to other Netflix things, I think it's for the family.
Yeah. And it's just not Hallmark. It's not when you're on, if you're talking on a Hallmark level, but the first 2 episodes the first one is from Dash's perspective, and the second one is from Lily's perspective. So you get to meet these 2 characters. And I think they did such a great job across the board with casting in this show. Both actors were both of the lead actors I was unfamiliar with. I had never seen before. My only critique with that is that I do think they should have made her a little bit older. I felt like to me, most of her actions felt like somebody that's in college or just starting college, not somebody who's in high school. I don't know, just her independence and just kind of a lot of the things that happen just to me make more sense for somebody that's in college. So I would have probably made her like 19. I think that made more sense. Plus the actress looks older to me than so that would be my only minor like critique with the casting, but I loved her. I thought she was amazing.
She's definitely, for her age in the show, she's more mature. I believe there's a lot of independence there, but that could be due to her circumstances. I think I'm just kind of playing the comparison game, because some of these other Netflix shows, like 13 Reasons Why, they all look 28, right? At least I think she can pass for that age. In terms of Abrams, I really like him. I believe he was in Paper Towns. He was in a story this year, Chemical Hearts, I believe. And a lot of people know him from Euphoria, where he plays a completely different character. Now, he still has that snarkiness here, but I like the fact that there's some likability there. And the more I see this guy, the more I like him. But for me, even though he was fantastic, I think she was kind of the one that blew me away just because I didn't know a lot about her, man. And her enthusiasm, that bubbly and just sparkly personality, I loved every time she was on screen. And I said
Yeah.
this, she may be the most likable Netflix character, or one of the entire year. I thought she was great.
Yeah, it would have been easy to have made her character a manic pixie dream girl that's just kind of
Yeah.
there to perk up the male characters, which I really
Yeah.
don't care for. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that she is positive. She is really into Christmas, but she also has her snarky moments and her honest moments, and she pushes herself and she can be judgmental. And so I don't think that she is fits, you know, those sort of negative tropes. And so she's just such a likable,
Yeah.
sweet, lovely character. It's so nice to see somebody that is so nice to see some diversity in a show like this, which
Yeah.
you don't always get to see. And I just thought she was a revelation. She was so good.
Over the top circumstances, but very grounded characters, I
Yeah.
thought, especially our two leads. I mean, you, again, the fact that they were able to give these two chemistry, that's what blew me away about this show. It's like I felt that scene where the camera's coming in, they're both sitting at the table, and it kind of combines that shot, and it's almost like they're there with each other. Like, I felt like they were there, even though they technically weren't throughout the
Yeah.
entire show. And then when they finally meet and they get off to, a bit of a rough start, I'm like, no, guys, come on. So they really made me feel for these two characters. Now, the supporting characters were great as well, most of them. And I'm sure we'll get into that. But I thought the two leads were fantastic.
Yeah, they're really, really good, especially her.
Yeah.
She was just so sweet. And yeah, we also get as her grandfather, we have James Saito, who is a legend. He's an incredible actor. And we just had him in he was just in a Hallmark movie.
Cool.
What was it called? I'm getting them all confused. He was just in a Hallmark movie called The Christmas Bow, which was a way better than I expected it to be. You have to check out our weekly wrap up recap for The Christmas Bow. But yeah, he was just in that, and then he's also, what did I just recently see him in? Anyway, he's been in a million things. He has been around forever, and he's great. And I thought he did a good job in this, kind of playing this kind of old school character who's used to doing things a certain way, and then is kind of dealing with these grandkids and what on earth is happening. I kind of like that. And so I don't know. What did you think of him?
I thought he was great. I really liked the culture behind especially how he approached her. Like, he's very protective. And then you have Lillian, I believe is her full name, but the aunt character of sorts, and their relationship. Those two going back and forth, and what's right for her, what's wrong for her, going out and doing some things and getting a little drunk here and there. It's like, all right, well, she's grown up right before my eyes, but am I going to accept that? So I thought he was fantastic. And her entire family, I thought her brother character was just hilarious. Like the very, it's almost the relationship that you need with her, because she is to herself, very independent. She's hanging out with a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds, so they when they start kind of getting her out there and kind of escaping that bubble, which is what Abrams' character says, that's when she really started to blossom. So I thought her entire family was really, really great.
Yeah, and he could have been a very cringy character, just being like all rules and no understanding, but he wasn't. He was like a realistic person. Like, he obviously is protective, but not to the point of, it's like a character like the dad in Footloose. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been somebody like that,
Yeah.
but he wasn't. He was like reasonable, which I
Yeah, I
appreciate.
agree. You needed something there to kind of keep, and obviously that's where it first spawned from, was, her brother is the one that had the idea in the first place. And then her grandfather was the one that really kind of put the clause in and say, you're not going to do this and that. So it's like, Dash is over here telling her, get out, do something different, escape the boundaries that you feel like you've been constricted by your entire life. So I love that. I thought it was great and allowed her character to really shine. And that moment when she goes to that, what was it? A Jewish rock? Was it like a Jewish punk rock? I love that. I'm like, she is such a fish out of water right now. I thought her character grew so much from that one episode. I thought it was great.
I loved the whole scene where Dash gets dared to sit on Santa's lap, and that whole scene was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
And then you get to see Santa later on when he comes back and he's like, I don't know if I like that guy very much. It's like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, of course you don't. And he escaped. It's like your classic, like, holiday, takes the hat, runs out of the store, gets kicked out. I'm like, I know it's cliche to a degree, but it was a lot of fun. I just love that scene.
No, it was really funny. Well, and I think a lot of this too is admittedly helped by the fact that there is more escapism watching this in 2020 than there would have been last year. Because just all the crowded scenes and the things that we can't even do this year, as far as even sitting on, can we sit on Santa's lap this year? Probably not. All that stuff. It's just made seeing all of New York, when New York's basically shut down right now. There's an added escapism, I think, to the show this year.
It did. It feels, it's light, obviously, tone wise, but it just felt like this, almost like, well, obviously it's a fairy tale. You got the before midnight, you got the returning the boot. It's all these fairy tale tropes. And even though it's a grounded story, somewhat with grounded characters, but obviously over the top, it felt like a fairy tale, like you're watching this romance, this love story play out. So I like the escapism, and obviously 2020, being in public, it's nice to see every once in a while.
It's like I was live tweeting one of the Lifetime movies this weekend, and I'm like, one of the characters gives another character like an awkward hug, and I was like, remember when that was a thing? It was like awkward hugs. That was
like Contact, or and I see that too. Even going back and watching older films right now, I'm like, you're within 6 feet. Oh wait, no, that's a movie from 2009. Like, it's okay. Like, 2020 has ruined me. I can't watch anything without being stopped. Get away. You're too close to each other. Oh, wait. Okay, we're not in 2020. All right, we're good. So it's a weird world, Rachel.
It really is. It's so weird. I never thought I would be nostalgic for crowd scenes, watching some of these movies, and people are at like a town festival, and I'm like,
do you remember that? And even the mask, like, no one's obviously they're not going to be wearing masks. So I'm like, guys, put your mask on. What are you doing? Come on. Right. So it's just odd.
Yeah. Take a second and thank our sponsors for this episode of the podcast. They are the good folks over at Care Of, and they've been a sponsor for us for quite a little while, and we're very grateful to them. And they have high quality products, meets personalization. I think that's what makes them special. And all of Care Of's products are formulated with good for you, clean ingredients that are backed by science. And they are super transparent about the research and sourcing behind all of their products. And you get individualized recommendations that come in daily individual wrapped packets that are perfect for getting back into a routine. We all are sort of struggling with that right now, and you have, even it has your name on it. They're very individualized, and the way that they become individualized is they start you off with you taking their 5-minute online quiz. And this quiz, it asks you about your lifestyle, your sort of your belief in vitamins, how you feel about that, your lifestyle, your skepticism, your health concerns, all that stuff are taken into effect. And then you are given with your recommendations for what you should be taking. And that's very, very helpful. And you can adjust your pack at any time. It's like having a one-on-one consultation with a nutritionist, all without leaving your house. And I know when I took the quiz, I was able to narrow down to my sleep needs as being my highest priority. So I was able to get some of the Dream Team on the go quick sticks, and those have melatonin as well as other properties that are good for helping you to sleep. And they've been great. It's a wonderful service that they offer and makes things quick and easy. You can have it delivered. You can have it on a regular basis, or you can individually order your vitamins. Important for all of us right now with fall coming on that we fall back into a healthy routine. As the season changes, it's important to get ahead of taking care of your immune health. It takes about 30 days for your body to adapt to new nutrients. So now is a great time to update your vitamin and wellness routines to help support your immune system this fall. Caregiver's products go beyond vitamins and supplements to include protein powders and boosts to help supplement your workouts as you move indoors in the colder months. So you will really find it helpful. For 50% off your first Care of order, go to takecareof.com, enter code Hallmarkies50. That's new code. So go to takecareof.com, enter code Hallmarkies50. I also loved the actor playing the elf in the in that scene. He did
Who was an actor, and when he got approached for his role, he's like, "Oh, really? Come on!" And he had his signed picture.
Yeah,
like,
he had
so
his headshot ready to go.
Yeah,
perfect. He gives it to him.
Perfect.
It was. I guess his name was Michael Cyril Crichton, and so Michael, you did a good job. It was really funny.
I agree.
And so we get those first 2 episodes out of the way, which are sort of setting up our basic premise for the show and our characters. And I mean, I felt like they did a good job of making Dash. He's snarky, but not, in my opinion. I felt like he was likable enough. I mean, just the fact he's willing to go along with all of this and participate kind of says a lot to me. I know our friend Kristen Maldonado, she was not a big fan of Dash.
Oh,
but
really?
But I thought that he was kind of hipstery and kind of a little bit irritating at times, but he was always still willing to go for it.
Yeah.
In the end. So I think that a lot of it was over to me.
A lot of it was circumstantial too. Like, look at what happened with his former relationship, and a lot of it has to do with his, the kind of the beef with his dad, and a lot of it revolves around Christmas. I would like to see him maybe during Halloween. I feel like he would be happier during a different holiday, because Christmas is just like not his time of the year. But I liked him by the end of the story. Like you said, willing to do what he did. Even that first episode, I'm like, I don't think I could do that. Yeah. I don't think I could do it. So I liked him. I thought he was really good.
Well, it's just so attractive. The whole idea of people falling in love over their words. That's such whether it's Shop Around the Corner, or you've got Mail, or many different types of movies and roles. That's just such an attractive quality. I mean, it's just me as a writer. The idea of somebody being like of corresponding with someone and falling in love is such an appealing, I think, quality.
Well, and to me, it goes beyond that too. It's like, we could have, 2020, you could use text messaging, heck, send an email, but it's almost like this classic, handwritten, we're going back and forth with this journal, and it's crazy to think that feels so outdated, but unfortunately it just kind of does. Kids are constantly texting everything, like, send me a letter. I'm not going to send a letter. I can just text you. Right. Well, this almost throws us back and goes back to the escapism. Kind of, it feels out of its time. You know what I mean? And getting what he got from her through a handwritten letter per se, I thought was great. And I thought it worked.
So then we have the Hanukkah episode, which you mentioned. So she gets dared to go to this Hanukkah club, this underground club. And that's why this episode in particular, I feel like she felt more like a college student to me than a high school student. But anyway, she goes to this club with this Yiddish rock band, I guess you describe it. I don't know. And she also wears this, she's had this dress for forever that
Yeah.
she hasn't had the confidence to wear, but her brother and his boyfriend convince her to wear the dress. And so she goes to this club and has this kind of crazy night. There's this drag queen there,
Yeah.
and she's dancing like a maniac. What do you think of this episode?
It was great. I mean, like you said, it got us a chance to, because, until that point, I know we got her episode, but we didn't really know her. We
Yeah.
knew she was peppy. We knew she loved Christmas, but I didn't know what, again, the conflict was going to be, and kind of coming outside of her shell, which was nice to see. And then, obviously at the end of the episode, we run into a bit of a traumatic aspect of her past with, what's the guy's name? Was it
Edgar.
Edgar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Edgar.
Just don't like Edgar. We'll talk about it. Just don't.
Well,
and I know you're not supposed to like him. It's not his
yeah.
fault, but I don't like him.
So basically, Edgar is this character from her past that made fun of her, this bully in was that like middle school? I think?
Yeah,
middle
I think
school.
so.
And she had made friendship bracelets for everybody in school, and she was trying to give them out to people, and everybody just tossed them aside. And this kid was saying, you're so weird, and making fun of her. And so she has all of this trauma, which I certainly connect with, because I was definitely bullied as a kid, and they had to take me out of school because it was such a problem. And it's just so, kids can be so mean. They can be so horrible.
Yeah. And he's still mean.
Yeah.
he's the worst. And they end up connecting later on, which I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Goodness gracious. But man, every time his character's on screen, I'm like, I don't like Edgar. And I know that's the point. I get it. But just frustration there.
Well,
and
he's
gave her another
totally
aspect of her
clueless.
character.
He has no idea that he hurt her.
Yeah.
And so it's I thought that her backstory was more compelling than his backstory, because he had dated this kind of perfect woman in his eyes. And this kind of goddess character, and so played by Keena Marie. And I guess, is she famous? Is she someone I should know?
I didn't know her.
Yeah.
I didn't know her, so maybe not. But
I feel I guess she was new to me as far as an actress, but she is beautiful, and we understand why he had this relationship with her. But I don't know, I just felt like hers was more compelling, maybe just because I connect with it more, having had a bully experience in my life. And so I connected with her, and I thought they did that really well, just showing her getting all the little her getting all the charm bracelets. And
that was a really good. I'm glad they gave both of them a nice backstory. And with his backstory, I don't relate to being with the goddess, because she was like, she's rich, she's got all the money and this and that. And I was in a relationship once, and I was not myself with this girl, right? I'm a completely different person, catered to whatever you want, honey, this and that. And that's kind of how I felt he was with her, just not himself. And so he finally opens up with Lily via the journal, which was cool. But I liked his backstory, but I think I'm with you. I think hers being a bit more traumatic and making you like her even more, I thought hers was a bit better.
Yeah. So she runs away from the club, and after seeing Edgar, and she ends up losing her boot. And so Dash also leaves her a message on the mirror in the bathroom of the club.
Yeah.
and the witch was really cute. So anyway, so then the next episode is called Cinderella, where he gets the boot and he goes on a little journey to try to find out who owned the boot, and that's where he
Yeah.
ends up meeting her aunt, who was a fun character. I liked her. She was played by Jodie Long, and
Okay.
I thought that she was a fun character.
Yeah, she was one of my favorite. Like the second she opens the door, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna like her,"
Yeah.
because she tells it how it is. That point where she gives a little hint as to Dash's name, I'm like, "Ooh, you better quit!" Like I just every time she said anything, I thought she was great. I'm not very familiar with the actress. I mean, I've seen a lot of her work. I know she did a lot of things like in the 80s and the 90s. But I don't know if she's done anything recently, but I think she is outstanding in this show.
Yeah, evidently she did Curb Your Enthusiasm, she did some
Mm-hmm.
other stuff that I haven't seen, but she was really fun, and it's just great to see these actors getting these roles, because I think if this show had been made even just a couple of years ago, it probably would have been all white characters with
Yep,
in
I agree.
and it's just so, it just makes it better. It's more interesting. It's a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
it just adds a fun element to have people of, have an Asian element to this story. It
Yes.
just makes it better,
Yeah.
I would say.
I agree. It diversifies the show in general, and it allows us to get a bit of a different insight into, okay, we have a white male, we have, Asian characters, we have black characters, like across the board. It's just, it adds a flair to the show that you
Yeah, a
don't
flair.
often get. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Like, it could have still been obviously good if it's done
Yeah,
well. Like, I
for
mean, I
sure.
enjoyed Emily in Paris, for instance, and that
Me too.
was a white protagonist. So it just depends on how it's done. But I don't know. It just, to me, is just really fun and nice to see. So yeah, this Cinderella episode was probably my favorite, just because I love Cinderella, and I love romance, such big romantic gestures, and him going through and trying to find her was just so fun. I
Yeah.
loved that. And I think that's where I really became a fan of Dash, was in that episode, because he was really, I also really liked Boomer in that episode. His friend
Yes.
was really fun. And I liked that he was just like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. I but you talk about the ultimate best friend character. And I
Yeah.
know they get in a fight at one point. It's like, oh, you're talking about behind my back, but all Boomer tried to do was help him out. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to tell you the name. I'm not going to tell you this, but I will tell you that he's a great guy. You got to get past his walls, but then he'll open up. It's like, that's the best friend you want. So I
Yeah.
thought that was great.
He kind of reminded me of Dave Chappelle and You've Got Mail, who I love him in that movie. I mean, I
Yeah,
love
you're
almost
right.
everything about that movie, but he's
That's a
so
great
funny.
movie. Yeah,
He's
I
like,
agree.
yeah, him and Tom Hanks are so funny together.
I agree with that.
So I would, hopefully in season 2 we can get a full Boomer episode. I would love that.
Oh, yes, me too.
Yeah.
And what's the On My Block? Have you seen that show, Rachel, on Netflix?
Mm-mm.
There's a character in that show that, I kid you not, they just, their actions and the over enthusiasm, he reminded me so much of him. And it's just like, that's one of my favorite characters on Netflix. And so he really stood out in this show for me. And I thought he was perfect casting as well. I thought the kid was great.
Mm-hmm. So she finds out that her parents are actually going to move to Fiji. And so she's going to have to move, she thinks, with them to Fiji.
Yeah.
And she's pretty depressed about it. And I mean, you don't want to leave New York City. I get it. But I might be more excited to
I would
leave.
too. Fiji, come on now, let's go.
So in episode 5 is Sophia and Edgar, it's called, and that's where we get more about this backstory between both of them. So Sophia is the ex for Dash, and she actually ends up finding him, and they have kind of she wants to start the relationship over again, but he is not, he's not interested in doing that.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit further down. But anyway, we get to hear more in episode 5 about Sophia and Edgar.
Yeah, this was the episode. I knew they would have a chance encounter at some point. I knew there had to be, because, it's kind of the trope of they're going to meet. They're not going to know it's each other, of course. But I really like the way that it happened. I like the way they built up to it. You're going to go to this party with me. And then, of course, Edgar, being kind of I didn't like him. I know he's clueless and he doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's just kind of like, I can get away with anything. And then later on there at the bar is like, oh yeah, I'm going to be your first kiss. And just that character, but establishing who they were and who they are now. And I love the fact that Dash is such a different character now than he used to be. He's finally, and she even tells him at one point, she's like, you're different. You're a completely different person. And I don't know if it was this one experience with the journal or maybe combination of events leading up to that, and this just amplified it. But I thought the character development of this episode was great.
Yeah, it was good. And then they end up actually at the same party, but they don't know that they're both there.
Yeah.
And through the course of the party, they start to figure things out. And she sees him leave with Sophia, and so she thinks that he's he's interested in Sophia. And so I thought that whole party scene was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did too. And Boomer leaving and her coming around the corner, I'm like, oh, just so close. And then they would have known, and we could have avoided this. And then at one point, he almost says his name. No, she almost says her name. And then he realizes, or he doesn't get a chance to realize who it actually is. I'm like, God, right there. It's all these daggone it moments. So why do you keep going past that? But it builds for a great finale. So I see why they did it.
Yeah, it almost remind, not to keep quoting You've Got Mail, but it did kind of remind me of the party scene in You've Got Mail, which I love.
Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong.
You're taking all the caviar garnish. You're taking all the caviar.
You're right.
I love that scene in that movie. That caviar is a garnish. But yeah, and the other thing that this show reminded me of is Serendipity. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I don't think I've seen that one. No.
John Cusack. It's pretty cute. It's about, so they meet, they have this incredible night together, they have this incredible evening together and all over New York City. And so they decide to both write their names in this book. And if fate wants them to be together, then they'll find the book. And it's kind of ridiculous, but anyway. And so there's all this fate and everything, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of that movie. And so that was a lot of fun. And so then we get to our final 2 episodes. So in the Christmas episode, they actually meet, and they have this connection, and it seems to be going pretty well. But then there's this nervousness about it all, this conflict, and she's having to move, and so there's that going on. And then so then we finally get to the New Year's Eve episode, and what do you think about them involving Nick Jonas in this finale?
Well, it was so random because they go to the concert and I'm like, well, if the Jonas Brothers agreed to do this, then I know one of them is going to pop up and have a little conversation. And of course it was Nick, and they're sitting there talking. They're like, he's like, I got to do this. I got to go after her, and I've got to make things right. And then Nick Jonas pops up. He's like, you sure do, man. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's Nick Jonas. And I knew that was going to happen, but it didn't feel. And the guy says, he's like, oh yeah, I know these guys. This is why I'm in their trailer. So I'm like, okay, it's just a way to get him in there, but it kind of worked for what it was. And it gave Dash the opportunity to get more motivated than he already was. So a strange inclusion, but one that I wasn't upset with. I'll say that.
It was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. It kind of added to sort of the whimsy of the whole, it was just fun. I enjoyed it.
I agree with that.
It made me smile. And so they end up, they're in his tour bus, and he's like, get out of my bus, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like, go
get
after
out.
this girl. And
Yeah.
it was cute. I enjoyed it. And and then he decides that he's going to decorate this bookstore where he found the book.
Mm,
And he basically like sets it up as sort of this mini New York with that, and everything sort of symbolizes one of the different dares that
yeah.
they did. And so she comes, and it's just great. It's
Yeah.
so she's feeling really sad because she's gonna have to move. And I don't know. I love over the top romantic gestures. Obviously, I love Hallmark movies. So I loved this whole thing in this bookstore, and it
Yeah.
was really good.
I'll tell you, normally I would be like, oh, so cheesy. It's so cheesy. How many times have we seen this? I don't know what it was. Like, why can't you bring me on a podcast and we talk about a bad movie or show? I keep getting won over by these ridiculous, and this is such a, in theory, it's so ridiculous, but she walks in and it's decorated and it's so just sweet. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, come on.
He's got
How
all
do
the
you not
food
love
there
this?
from the different challenges. There's a pretzel. Oh, we forgot to talk about the breakable room, whatever place that she goes to. That was interesting. Do you think that's a real
Breakable.
place? You know, where
Oh,
she
yeah,
destroys
yes.
it's like this whole place where you put together some kind
Yes.
of craft and then you immediately destroy it. That's the whole shtick
I
of this
I hope
place.
it's a real place because I'm going to seek that out one of these days when COVID is not a thing. I'm going to
Yeah.
seek it out because that
I,
is an
if
interesting
I could
idea.
have the distancing, I feel like I need that even more in COVID. Let me destroy stuff.
Yeah, because I tend to get very like impatient easily. It's like little tiny things with my videos. I just like, oh, so that is like the ultimate
Yes.
outlet. So I hope it's real, Rachel. I do.
It
I think
reminded me
that'd
of
be
the
great.
scene in Office Space when they destroy the fax machine.
Yes, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too. Just pure anger. Yeah, I loved that. I thought it was great.
Um, but it's so sweet. This ending is really good. And then she goes back and she finds out that she can stay with her aunt
Yeah.
and she doesn't have to move to Fiji. So that's very good news. And and we also find out her brother, because her brother was frustrating a little bit to me because first of all, he's like so into this relationship that he's
Mm,
ignoring his family, which I was kind of irritating. And again,
mm,
felt a little bit like he should be older to be having this kind of
yeah.
like serious, I don't know, relationship. Maybe I'm just old fashioned. But
Mm.
but anyway, but then he just drops this guy like was his name Rodrigo or something like that,
Yeah,
or
something
I
like
forget.
that.
Anyway, he just drops him because the guy's going on vacation. It makes no sense. Like
Yeah.
what?
Like I liked his enthusiasm. I thought he was a funny character. For me, it was that subplot that I just didn't really care about. And it's mostly because of how he handled it. It's like, come on, dude, you're in the wrong here. And you're gonna give relationship advice. And she
Yeah.
tells him at the end, she's like, why are you giving me relationship
Yeah.
advice?
Like,
You're
what?
really bad at that. But yeah, it was that subplot, and then they kind of fix it at the end when he's standing below the second window, and he's like, "I got your journal," and I'm like, "Oh, I mean, that's sweet," but again, it's just kind of like, I didn't love that.
I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody that would dump me because I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks.
Oh man,
What?
I would have been dumped. I love vacation, so I'd be dumped multiple times. Like it's
Are you
not good.
kidding me?
Not good.
It was weird. I didn't like
Yeah.
that. But anyway, so yeah, they end up happy, and then Dash and Lily end up together. It's so cute. I loved the end. The kiss at the end was so good.
Yeah.
And especially because he thinks that she's into this Edgar guy, but she's not,
Thank goodness.
obviously. And so they try to like put some conflict in about her being interested in Edgar, him being interested in Sophia,
Yeah.
but of
Yeah.
course we know that they're going to end up together. And I feel like I know that there's multiple books, but I don't know. I think you said off air that you'd be fine with it, or you said in your review that you'd be fine with it just ending and being this little thing, and I kind of
Oh.
agree.
Yeah, and I
I
know it's according on how it does. I don't know how it's going to perform because they really didn't market it all that well,
no.
to be honest with you. But I like the idea of this being contained. They told their story, they tied it up in a nice little bow, which, 50-50. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. But I thought it worked really well for
Yeah.
what they did. And what more do you do? What more do you do, Rachel? I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't want to see them like break up and
No.
because you have to, if
Yeah.
you're gonna have a season two, then you have to have conflict because they're not like gonna get married. She's only 16. Like, so they have to have some kind
Yeah.
of conflict. And I don't know, I don't really want to see that. Like that would be, I mean, it can be done and done
Yeah.
well, but I don't know. I feel like it's a tall order. And I mean, I see that all the time with Hallmark movies because usually when they try to do a sequel, because everyone wants a sequel, but
Yeah.
usually they're terrible because they don't know what to do next because the couple's already together. So then what do? They have to
Hmm.
provide some kind of conflict. And usually it ends up just being really frustrating. You're like, why are you doing this? Why are you behaving this way?
Yeah.
Why are you ruining my couple that I love? Uh, and so I don't know. I agree with you that I would almost just prefer it to be this little a little thing, or like maybe make it an anthology. So maybe the next season it'd be about a different couple that have a similar.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'd be fine with that.
I like that more. I do. I mean, multiple books, so obviously they may have a story to go off of. I'm just, and they didn't say this was a limited series.
Hmm.
So that's one thing that tells me, oh no, well, not oh no, but they may do a sequel series. So I'm just
Yeah.
interested to see where they go. Now, there were a couple of things. Was Boomer with, um, it looked like he was holding hands. It was a very quick shot with Sophia, right? At the end, I
Yeah, I
believe.
think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. There was a little shot of that, but we didn't get
Which
much.
could
But that would
set
be
up some
fun.
conflict, maybe.
Yeah,
So
that's
we'll just have to
true.
see. We'll have
Yeah,
to
they
see.
could expand on the side characters, and that would be fun. Like I said, if we had a whole Boomer episode, that I would love that.
Yeah, me too. He's great. Or maybe even just focus on him next season. Like,
Yeah,
I'm all right.
have him have a book of his own or
Yeah,
something like that.
that would be great.
Because that's the classic as far as like romance novels of what I don't know about these particular novels, but in romance novels, what they usually do is they'll have a story, and then the second book is about a side character of the first book, and you just have the
Oh,
first
yeah.
couple just appears like briefly, and that's why you'll have like the Fool's Gold series where it's all about one town and each book is a different romance,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. And I think that if they were to go that route, that could be fun. But I haven't read the other books, so you have to let us know if you've read
Yes.
the books. Let us know what if you think there's potential for more stories. And I don't know if the other books are set at Christmas or if that's just this one.
Hmm.
But it would be kind of a fun little Christmas thing to get
Yes.
every year. A little
I
Christmas
feel like
tradition.
Christmas is at the heart, even though technically it can take place during any time of the year. Christmas is really at the heart of this story. So it would feel weird doing a
Mhm.
season two and it not being Christmas time. So I think that
Yeah.
would make for a fun tradition. If you do a season two, set it at this time for sure.
Do you think though that you have to be a Christmas nut to enjoy this series? Because I obviously am a Christmas nut
Yeah.
and I love all things Christmas. But I feel like there's enough here that if you're the kind of person that's like Christmas movies, oh, I think you could still enjoy it because you could relate to Dash as a
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's where I was going. You have one character that loves Christmas, and you have another character who's not too big on it, and he's doing things outside of his comfort zone. So, yeah, I think if you love Christmas or not, I think you have to be open to the romance aspect. Because I know a
Yeah.
lot of people that would be like, I don't really want to watch it because it's a romantic show. But I think it does enough here fresh to kind
Mhm.
of overcome that. So I
Yeah.
would recommend this honestly to pretty much anyone, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much anyone. Maybe open the door into a new genre, or if you're a fan, then you're going to eat it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there we go. That's our thoughts on Dash and Lily season 1. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very romantic. It was very sweet. I loved the lead, particularly the lead actress,
Yeah.
Dory Francis. She was so good. And so yeah, I was a little bit skeptical actually going into it because Netflix can be hit and miss.
Yeah.
This was a win for me, and so I'm so glad that you enjoyed it as well. We rate things in this podcast 1 to 5.
Okay.
We'll do stars for Netflix 1 to 5. What would you give it 1 to 5 for
I'd go
Dash and
4.
Lily?
I would go 4 out of 5. It's just with you in that camp of I did not expect anything. And even on a technical level, I thought it was shot really
Yeah,
well. I thought it
me
was
too.
beautiful to look at, so well directed. You have to have the proper editing to maintain a story that goes back and forth between two different perspectives. And I thought it was great. And then obviously the story worked. So I would go 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm also gonna go 4 out of 5. It's very whimsical and sweet and funny
Yeah.
and just I don't know, just very enjoyable. I think people will love it. So let us know what you think of this series if you get a chance to watch it. We'd love your thoughts in the comments section, or you can hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to hear what you think. And so, Austin, where can people find your channel?
Yeah, you guys can find me, Austin Burke, on YouTube. So many Netflix things, movies and TV shows. I'm watching The Crown, and I'm hopefully watching Mank later on. So I can't wait to continue to get gems like this, like
Yeah.
Babysitter's Club and Dash and Lily, 2 shows that you don't expect to be great, but they ended up being great. So thanks for having me on, Rachel. I
Yeah,
appreciate
so
it.
fun to have you on, and we'll try to have you on for a bad show. One of
Yes.
these
Oh, come
days.
on.
No.
I need this in my life, Rachel. I need to talk about it. Come on.
But you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out, and make sure you're following the podcast, the Hallmarkies Podcast and Hallmarkies Pod, all over social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. It helps us out so much. We really need those so people can find the podcast during this time of the year. If you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, and we are having a special patron watch along this Saturday. You want to make sure that you're signed up. Any level patron can participate. It's only $2 to join in on the Patreon, and we are watching Two Turtle Doves, which was the fan favorite last year for Hallmark Channel, with the director Leslie Desmirandis and producer Kevin Duda is going to be there on the watch along. It's going to be super fun. So make sure that you are signed up for our Patreon. You'll love it. And then also we have our merch store, which has tons of festive designs. And so make sure to check that out. There's going to be sales all the way through this month and next month. So definitely take a look at that. We also have our free Zoom backgrounds. If you go to hallmarkiespodcast.com/zoom-backgrounds, you can download by artist Jessica Miller and just have fun. That's our little gift to all of you. So please check that out. And thanks again, Austin. This was so much fun. And we'll talk to you all later. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.